All right, man, peace. So, brothers, the last series that we're going to be covering in the Western Conference will be the 2-7 matchup between the Denver Nuggets and the San Antonio Spurs. Well, this season, they received compensation for Kawhi Leonard in the form of DeMar DeRozan, and they basically had the same record this year that they had last year. So who are they going to blame this season if they get knocked out in the first round? And this really is going to be a referendum on the Greg Popovich era, at least the last part of it, as well as the San Antonio Spurs team. Because if they get swept by the Nuggets or they lose in 5 games, where do they go from here? Because we all know that the Spurs organization is not a place where free agents are going to come to. We also know that because of Popovich's coaching, the team is going to be so good that they're never going to have high draft picks. So basically, they're going to have to draft guys late in the first round and coach them up, or be able to mine for talent from South America or Europe, which is basically what they've been doing for the last 20 years or so. So this is a very interesting series just from that standpoint. And when it comes to the Denver Nuggets, this is their first time in the playoffs in a few seasons. They almost made the playoffs last year. They just missed it. They have a lot of young talent. The only problem that I see with that squad is that they don't have a definitive alpha, a guy that they can give the basketball to down the stretch of games who can say, everybody get the hell out of my way. Is Jokic going to become that guy? Is Jamal Murray going to become that guy? We'll see. But one thing that the history of playoff basketball and the NBA tells us is that championship level teams, they need that guy. They need the guy who's going to grab the basketball either in the low post or on the wing and say, get out my way, I'm going to take the game over. So one of those guys are going to have to develop, or somebody else, in order for them to take that quantum leap that they're going to need to take to go from being a good to very good team to a championship squad. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
All right, we move on. Finally, we got the 2-seed Nuggets facing off against the 7-seed Spurs, who made the playoffs 22 straight seasons, tied for the most all-time. Stan, how much of a factor will playoff experience play in this series for both players and, of course, the respective coaching staffs here?
It's going to play a huge factor, especially early in the series. This is really going to test Mike Malone because he's going against a chess master in Popovich, who's not going to give them the same looks that he gave them in the regular season. And also, as we already know, the San Antonio Spurs have tried veterans in LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan. So those guys are going to have to really step up, especially in the games in Denver. Both of those players are going to have to average somewhere in the mid-20s points per game in order for them to be able to beat the Nuggets, who definitely have more talent overall. You hear a lot of great things about Mike Malone. He's done good jobs over in Sacramento, also, of course, this year in Denver. So in order for him to have his name be entered amongst the elite level coaches, this is a great opportunity. If he can knock off Popovich, this can be his introduction into the elite level of the coaching fraternity.
Well, for players, I think it's going to be really interesting because the Spurs' 2 best players, obviously, DeRozan and Aldridge, have been through all of this and have played very well on this stage.
They play relatively well. Relatively well. The good news for DeRozan is that he does not have to see LeBron James.
Denver counters with Paul Millsap. No one else has any experience. It's different in the playoffs. It'll be interesting. It's going to be the Spurs having more experience, okay, but the Nuggets having more talent and more depth. I think this is one of the more interesting series.
Very interesting. As of right now, I have the Nuggets in 7 games. I think that they're going to get better as the series goes along.
He's going, even though it's a 2-7.
Now, this is the worst possible matchup for Denver because not only of the experience gap there, but also I love Coach Malone, but this is his first time going through a playoff series.
Right.
And rather than getting a traditional 7-seed where it's a nice tune-up, an appetizer to use the term, he's going up against the best chess master in the world.
Yes, sir.
And Greg Popovich, a master of the adjustments, a master of, hey, we did it one way for 82 games. Guess what? For you, I got something special right here. That they did it to us in Phoenix, where they would guard us one way all year long, and then we hit the playoffs and completely switch up their coverage.
Because everybody knew what you guys in Phoenix wanted to do. That's why Phoenix never got to the finals, because they played the same way in the playoffs as they did in the regular season. They thought, okay, well, we won 58 games, we won 60 games, we won 62 games in the regular season. We're just going to do the same thing in the playoffs. And that's why you guys never won the big one.
Coverages. And so all of those things make me, the talent gap is so huge, but the experience gap on the other end is huge as well. I don't know which way I'm going on.
Denver in 7, I mean, be a man about it.
I'm going to say Denver
right, is going to win this series.
I agree.
But boy, like you said, this is not who they wanted to see by any means. And really,
Right, but I mean, let's be for real. What team in the Western Conference wants to face the Spurs in the first round, other than maybe the Warriors? Like, the Warriors don't really care. But every other team, they're worried because they know what San Antonio brings to the table. If the Spurs were to have faced off with the Rockets, James Harden just gave them 61 points a couple of weeks ago, and it took all 61 for them to beat the Spurs in Houston. So there's no other teams that wanted to see the Spurs or cared other than the Warriors. The Warriors don't give a shit. You know, they don't care who they play. But no other team wants to face the Spurs.
I just think there's just too much firepower. You got Will Barton, you got Paul Millsap, you got Joker, you got Jamal Murray, you got Gary Harris, you got Malik Beasley, you got Trey Lyles. You got so many guys that can make impacts. I'm not saying that the Spurs don't, and they're like the Patriots. You never want to bet against them. Never.
Well, what I think Popovich is going to do is he's going to make the Denver Nuggets figure out who their alpha is going to be. And when you have a team like the Nuggets where they have 4 or 5 guys averaging 15 points per game or more, playoff basketball, once again, normally revolves around the teams that know how to play hard-nosed defense, know how to execute in the clutch, and have that one guy who's going to give them 27, 28 points per game and who they can ride in those big moments, who can draw fouls and make his free throws. So what I see with Popovich is he wants to confuse their offense. Those equal opportunity offenses, he's going to say, you know what, guys, we're going to make them figure out who their go-to guy is going to be, something that very few teams have made them try to figure out over the course of the regular season. And then we'll see exactly what they're made of from there.
Never bet against them. But it's just, I think the experience gap, it's not close. If the talent level was close, but I think there's a big gap in talent that kind of that neutralizes that experience gap.
Yeah, it could be a 7-game series. That one certainly could be. Up next.
Yes, I think that it will be, and I'm picking Denver in 7. So peace.